Hey guys, it's Christina. This is Vox and Guest, and I am joined today by power couple Drew and Christina of the Winter Wars. Say hi, guys.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Look at this power couple. Look at you two. And we got to introduce third member of the band back here, who's not Buddy, but the unofficial third member. Where is Benny? Where'd he go?
He's hiding behind Drew, our cat.
Benny is the. I don't think anyone will be offended if I say Benny is the brains of the operation. Does all the mixing, mastering, producing. Benny is a powerhouse in himself. No, he's not. But I'm sure in his own way he is. But yeah, so and we should mention that we do have an actual new third member, Buddy, your drummer, who could not be here today, but we're gonna represent him in spirit or whatever. Or Benny can, I guess, stand in for Buddy. The names are close enough. So I am so happy to have you guys on the show. We have a lot to talk about with your terrific music, but I don't know if you guys are aware. Don't know if you've seen the show. But we are serious investigative journalists around here. We have really we have a standard we have to uphold, awards that we're winning, things like that. No. And so I have to begin every single interview with I don't want to say it's the most important question you'll ever answer in your life, but it's probably right up there. Okay. So I want you guys to, we're going to start off strong. I want you to dig deep and be honest. Okay. Are you ready?
Ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you actively wash your feet in the shower, or do you feel like the runoff is enough to get them clean?
I'm going to go with runoff. I mean,
You're a runoff guy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. I mean, I've never had a problem with, I never have felt the need to make sure to scrub them. Well, not never. That's not never. But
now we're qualifying it. Drew is backpedaling. Here we go. But so, like, unless you've been walking through, say, a large vat of soup, or you've been scooping up mud with your feet, generally you feel like your upper body activity is enough to just waterfall whatever is on your feet off. I appreciate that. Okay, you're a runoff guy. Christina, are we I know if there's leg shaving or things that go on, we are generally more adjacent to the feet than the men might be. Not to overgeneralize about who shaves their legs and who does not, but are you a active washer or a runoff gal?
A runoff gal. However, there are, I would say, seasons where we both soak our feet in the tub, and it's like we're doing a pedicure at home.
Okay, I like it.
So, like, I'll give them real good attention, maybe like 3 times a year. And I don't get them done in the salon. So,
the rest of the time, you're just opening bottle caps with your feet. If you're like me, it's like, you know what? Summer, my toes are out. Everything's good. I got red toenail polish. The rest of the time, let's just not talk about it. But okay, I appreciate that. So you are both runoff folks. I'm not going to say that's what maybe brought you together as a couple, but it was probably at least part of it. And now we know this. And so I feel like from here, the interview is pretty much downhill, but let's talk about the music anyway. I was so glad to see that you guys signed up for this show, because you make music that is in, I don't even want to call it a genre, but a collection of genres that really I don't hear enough of in the community. So I'm happy that you guys are there and representing it too. But I wanted to ask you what you would call what you do. Like, what do you think of yourselves as a shoegaze band? Do you think of yourselves as a mix of things? Like, what's your, if somebody asks you what genre you're in, what do you guys generally say?
Yeah, I mean, alternative would capture it all, but definitely, shoegaze, dream pop, emo. There's some emo in there, like old emo.
Oh yeah.
Influences.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think?
I would have to agree.
Yeah.
I mean, and like you say, it's like you don't really hear this type of music very often, so it's just kind of maybe all on its own too.
Yeah. No, I agree. I was secretly hoping, Christina, that you might be like, I would really actually call it more hardcore gangster rap, Drew. But I didn't think so. But a little part of me was hoping. But yeah, I mean, I know that there are folks that dabble in shoegaze, like Electric Tardigrade and Star Uni and whatever. But like, I think that, again, it's not, I hear a lot of new wave in your music. I hear a lot of like, and that's a good thing to me. I hear a lot of Smiths. I hear a lot of, like the It's like the back in the day stuff that I love so much. And so I was really happy for that, to have you guys come on, because we get a lot of metal musicians, which is great. We get a lot of rock and alt rock, but we don't have quite as much true alt, and especially I think you're the first official shoegaze, or at least shoegaze adjacent band that we've had. So yay for the winter war on that. So you guys are a couple, yes?
Yeah. I've been married for 15 years now.
Woohoo! All right, doing something right. Doing a lot of things right, actually. And so I guess, is it okay to ask, before I get into how you guys became musicians, how you met?
Yeah. You want to take that, or you want me to?
So I'm from Arizona, and that's where my parents lived, and I went off to the military and came back.
Oh, wow.
And I was living in Phoenix for a little while, and then got kind of burned out with Phoenix. So I said, hey, I'm going to go back to Prescott, where I'm from, Prescott, Arizona. And I stayed with my mom for a little while. I moved there on a Monday. And then I went out with friends, two of my close friends, to karaoke on a Wednesday night at a place called, at a place called Matt's Saloon. And Drew walked in with one of his friends, and my friend Miranda, her brother Ryan is really good friends with Drew. And there was many times that I was going to meet Drew, but I never did. So when she saw him, she's like, Drew, come here, hugs and all that. And then I remember he said, can I buy you a drink? And I said, sure. And then we kind of slow danced and talked a little bit. And then hung out. And then that night, he's like, can I get your number? And I remember I looked at my friend Miranda, and she's like, yeah.
I like that you had to ask Miranda, like, should I? Should I? It's like a game show.
For a while, and so she's like, oh, yeah. So then he was different than all the other guys, because he called when he said he was going to call. He's like, I'll call you in a couple of days.
Oh,
exactly 2 days.
Thank you for trying not to have game, Drew, and just actually being a human being and making the actual call. I appreciate that on behalf of all people who wait by the phone for the call that they're supposed to get. So, all right. So he stood out simply for actually having called when he said he would. Well done, Drew.
Yeah. And he was the type that if we went on a date, when he was dropping me off or we were done, he had plans for the next one. So I
locking her in. I like it.
Oh yeah.
Never had.
You were smart. Okay. So I appreciate that, because I know there's supposed to be like some mystery and whatever, and I think all that is crap. I think, if you like somebody, just like somebody and let them know, and then you don't have to worry about it, because a lot of times it's like, well, should I even bother investing in this person, because I don't even know if they're into me? And Drew was like, boom, I'm right there. Drew.
Oh yeah.
Drew, the man. Look at that.
Yeah.
You were just so I want to hear now, it's like a movie where the first half is in like the one person's point of view, and then the second half we switch. So you walk in and you see this beautiful creature in front of you, and were you like, this is the one I was supposed to meet? Or like, did you have no idea that you had a mutual friend, or what was I
had no idea. I just, and I hated going to karaoke. I hated going downtown to bars. My friend Jordan he drugged me out that night.
Okay.
And he liked singing too. He liked doing karaoke. I remember he karaoke'd Bon Jovi's "Wanted Dead or Alive," and that was always that cracked me up. Actually, I mean, I loved Bon Jovi when I was younger, but it was funny hearing him do it. No, I don't recall ever her mentioning Christina. But yeah, once I saw Christina, it was like, and we talked a little bit. It was just like, when they say, oh, pretty quickly, I knew within like 2 or 3 weeks that I wasn't going to let her get away.
Oh, I love that so much. Look at that. And look at that, 15 years later. And you guys were, that is the best getting dragged out to an anything that anyone has ever done.
I agree.
Was it Jordan? You owe Jordan big time, right? Like that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, now I think the most important question though about this whole thing is, did you guys actually do any karaoke that night? Did you get to hear each other sing?
I don't know. Did I sing?
I don't remember.
I feel like I sang that night, but it might have been before
he got there. Okay.
Or me and my friend. I can't really remember, but I don't think I sang. I know Jordan sang.
Yeah.
Apparently, we're gonna see this clip of Jordan singing Bon Jovi on social media at some point. It's got to crop up. There's somebody had a camera somewhere, but no, that's great, and I love that you guys met around music. Like, how cool is that? You know, that's even though it was karaoke, it's still technically music.
Well, there's a lot of bonding shortly after. Just all we were doing in the first few weeks is just sharing music with each other. You know.
Yeah. I did that is definitely that's one of the best things about being a musician that's with a musician is that you have a whole language that some people don't that you can use to speak to each other and woo each other. So I love that. Talk to me though about before the Winter War was the Winter War. How did you guys get into music, each of you, in the first place? And by the way, Christina, thank you for your service. I don't know what branch you were in, but you know, I always want to make sure to thank you for that. So how did you guys get into music in the first place, each of you?
You want me?
Okay, yeah. Well, for me, you know, I always had a love for music. For me, it started with singing. Like, I would sing a lot. My grandmother encouraged me a lot when I was singing. I used to, the first tape I ever got was Bon Jovi, Slippery When Wet. And,
we have a real Bon Jovi fractal going here. Okay.
In the very beginning, it was so I used to sing those songs a cappella to her when I was like, I don't know, 6, 7 years old.
You used to serenade your grandma a cappella with Bon Jovi. That is maybe the cutest thing I've ever heard. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good memory. That's for sure. You know, I was really close with her. And then I started playing the trumpet when I was 10. And I was pretty good at that. And then I just the rest was just self-taught from there, you know, the piano and bass and, you know. Yeah,
you're kind of a musical Swiss Army knife. You play the keys, you play the drums, you play the guitar. Well, not the drums, but percussion at least, and sing. And so, I mean, was music just? I mean, was anybody in your family a musician ever? Were there instruments lying around, or you just you got started listening to music, loved singing, and then everything kind of I want to make music, and if nobody else is going to play it, I'll just learn. Is that kind of how it went down?
Well, my mom played. She had, she played the flute, had an accordion. That was always interesting to, you know, whenever that was pulled out. But, and then my brother, he was a pretty good musician as well. Played the saxophone and the French horn, ironically. Like, he played a reed instrument and then a brass instrument.
Yeah, okay, that's unusual.
That never happens.
Yeah, no.
Pretty good at both. So, So yeah, I mean, I guess you know, the singing was something I always loved, and then just, you know, I saw my brother doing, you know, playing music. I'm like, I'm gonna do that too. I'm gonna play music too, and
I love how much musical life was inspired by sibling rivalry. Like I hear that a lot on this show. Like, oh, my brother got a guitar, you know, like by this, that one. It's like, I want one too, you know, or what will happen is I'll ask the bass player in a band, like, how'd you start playing bass? And they were like, well, I used to play guitar, but my brother played guitar, so we needed a bass player. And, you know, so, but you, I mean, you know, it's impressive that you picked up everything you needed to be a one-man band, and then you also were writing your own stuff. So when did you start writing music instead of just, I'm assuming you did covers and stuff in there in some point, maybe at least. Yeah, okay. So when did you start working on originals?
Early 20s. One of our releases from this year actually was something I wrote when I was, I think, 21 or 22, the first one I released.
Okay, a couple years ago. Okay.
Yeah. So that's when I first started, you know, actually recording music. A friend of mine, I played in a band with him from the time I was 17. We were in this band after I moved to Arizona. And I just, we just started recording music together, and I think that was probably about it. And then kind of just played music with him for a long time, him and a couple other friends. And I don't know, we kind of just stopped playing, families,
life.
things happen, you know.
Yeah. What kind of music was it?
the same type of.
Okay. So
recording
this
now.
has always been your thing. Like this was always the kind of music that you wanted to make. Okay.
Well, it kind of started after moving to Arizona. It was, before I moved to Arizona, when I grew up in Iowa. And so there wasn't much of a music scene per se. I mean,
no.
if you wanted to,
I'm shocked.
if you wanted a CD or a tape or something, you had to go a couple towns over to a Walmart. That was it.
Oh wow, okay.
And I remember trying to find like albums and could never find them. I would hear one song and I'm like, I love that song, and then I would go look for the CD and could never find it.
Oh man.
And then after I moved to Arizona, I met that friend Kit Tang, who actually helped me write a song that I released this year. So we played music with a guy named Chad, who has a band. He still plays music, Chad Harris, and he has a band called Gloom Church that he's still.
That's a good name. Okay.
Those guys just opened me up to a whole new world.
Okay.
It was basically a lot of second wave emo, or Midwestern emo, and dream pop, shoegaze, that type of post rock.
Okay. Yeah. So all right. So you this is not necessarily where you began, but as soon as you heard it, it was like,
oh, that was it. Yeah.
Okay.
It was
sold. Okay. Yeah. Right. The heavens open up. But yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. But that's good, because I'm equally fascinated when people lock in on a genre from very early and never deviate. And I'm also, as I said, equally fascinated when people begin in one place musically and then end up over here. And it's like, wow, okay, how did you get from? So, all right. So we've got a little bit of you. I know that there's more too, but what about you, Christina? What's your musician origin story?
So I don't play any instruments, but I do.
You're a singer. You're a musician. Yeah. I'm a singer too, and I will bite anyone who tries to tell me I'm not a musician. So I know you don't play instruments, but you're a musician. You sing. So how'd you do that?
So I got inspired actually in kindergarten. I had a really good kindergarten. Actually, it was first grade. She had a piano in the classroom, and we would do the national anthem, and then we would sing like a bunch of songs afterwards.
Oh, okay.
And she had a vibrato, and I would mimic it.
Okay.
And so then I just was like, hey, I can sing. So my mom and my aunt, they would listen to Linda Ronstadt, but the Spanish.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
The Spanish album back in the 80s.
Yep.
And my grandma too. So they would play it, and I would take the tape from them, put it in my cassette player, and listen for a little bit, and then copy it, rewind it, play it back, and do that like all afternoon. And that's how I taught myself how to sing.
And then that's a good person to imprint on Linda Ronstadt. I know she gets a lot of crap, but she has a beautiful voice, and nobody sounded like her when she came out. So, and still really doesn't. So that's a good one to start with. You weren't listening to like, Nicki Minaj or whatever the poor kids now have to do. No shade on Nicki, but still, like Linda Ronstadt's a good one to train on. So you would just kind of learn, make sure you were on pitch, learn some of the legato things. Okay, you were just sort of teaching yourself the nuances then. Yeah,
and I was like 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
I was young.
Slacker. I mean, really, what were you doing for the first 4 or 5 years, Christina? Really? I mean, geez. Okay, so you got the bug early too. So we had at that age, Drew singing in the kitchen to Grandma Bon Jovi, and you're, Linda Ronstadt in your room with your little boombox or whatever. I love this. And so, did you join? Were you in chorus? Did you do any kind of? Okay.
So I used to then perform for my mom, and like my mom would have like gatherings, people over.
Okay.
And I would put on my little like dress, and I would sing all Linda Ronstadt's Spanish music. And I don't speak Spanish, so I never knew really what I was singing. But the adults loved it, and I was taking it in, and I loved the attention. And then there would be talent shows. And where I come from, there wasn't very many Hispanic families. There was probably like 5 of us.
Okay.
So like the talent show, like all the Hispanics from Prescott Valley came because I was singing in Spanish. I remember like looking in the back and I could see like all of our neighbors, you know, that were Hispanic.
That's amazing. See, they say representation matters, and it does. And it's a cute story, but that's so great that like, oh my God, like I love that people heard, you know,
Yeah.
there's this little girl singing Linda Ronstadt in Spanish. You guys got to go down and check it out. That is the cutest thing. So, okay. So you were building a little music community there. That's awesome.
So then like throughout school and like growing up, then I would be the one that would sing at, sadly, funerals.
Oh,
I would sing at weddings. And then I also sang at a graduation party. So I would always just, you know, entertain people.
Yeah.
But it would only be like one song. Like I would just nail one song and belt it out. And then I would be like, I'm done.
Drop the mic and you're out.
Bye. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just kind of how it was. And then when I got, I would say when I lived in Phoenix, I thought like, oh, maybe I'll do cover songs. So I tried out and I'd never done it before. And I think it didn't go so well. It was like in front of a live. It was like literally like just get up on the stage and go. And I had never met these people, and that's
a lot. Yeah, that's a lot because auditioning is nerve-wracking enough,
right?
You know, and then to be sort of put so on the spot like that, especially if you've never done it before, that's a pretty big baptism of fire. So, well, all right, they're lost. Whatever band that was, you made a mistake, but okay. So, all right, so you tried out, that didn't pan out, and did that discourage you? Did you keep trying to find things, or?
I was a little discouraged, but then when I look back, that was kind of a crazy audition because it was like a nightclub, literally.
Yeah,
and
weird.
Just go up on the stage. We're gonna be playing Selena Bitty Bitty Bom Bom, hit it, go. And I'm like, I've never done this before. And there's
so was it like a house band that had a gig going and they were just basically open mic auditioning people? That's the weirdest thing.
So it was really weird. There's a place called Barcelona.
Okay.
And they had like cover bands, and then they wanted to have like Latina night or Latin night.
Okay.
And so I guess they lost their singer. They didn't have their singer, and they posted like looking for a singer for our band. And I'm like, sure. And I auditioned literally in front of everybody.
And in performance, great, with a band you'd never played with. Wonderful. How was that not set up for success? Okay, I'm glad that you realized how crazy pants that was. I mean, like, I've been in those situations where you go and sing with a house band you've never played with, but you kind of know you're doing it ahead of time. It's not just like, oh, by the way, there's the stage. Wait, what? You know, and all of a sudden you're supposed to be bitty bitty bumpa. That's not ideal. Okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then I collaborated with a few other people, but I mean, nothing really came of it. And so, I mean, I just always have loved music. And so, I mean, and I love singing. So, yeah.
So, okay. And so then you guys met and you're bonding over music. And at what point did you have the discussion about how you were both musicians and, hey, did you start being in a band right away? Did you, I mean, I know that you only started the Winter War in February last year, but still, I mean, like, you guys have been together a long time. So I'm assuming it wasn't like just last year you were like, wait, you make music too. So what happened in those other 14 years where you were together, but not a band yet? Were you making music, but just not putting it out? Were you too busy with life? What was the deal there?
Yeah, we just never really did. I mean, I would still like write songs. I'd still play songs.
Okay.
And even when, I started this project back in February, I wasn't even sure what I was going to do with it. I thought I was just like, I'm just going to record this one. And then it just was like, I love doing this. I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
I'm just going to record all my originals and write new ones. And I think it was at some point in there where I'm like, Christina is amazing. I need to get her to include her in this and write parts. And it just, it's kind of odd that it took so long. But
it is a little bit like, but not in a bad way. I find that really interesting because you would think like, okay, we're together, everything else, we're partners in this. And like, you have all of this talent between you. And yet for, you know, a decade and a half. We just never ever have it. Life is that way though, I guess, you know, it's like you're just busy with things and, you know, family and work and kids, and you just, you know, it doesn't happen. But I mean, I think I'm glad that it finally occurred to the two of you, you know, however long it took, but I'm glad that you're there. So, I mean, Christina, were you thinking, you know, this is Drew's baby and I'm going to just kind of let him do his own thing? Or did he ask you and you were kind of like, I don't know, I had that audition and, you know, like, I don't know if I ever, like, when did it finally happen that you said, okay, you know, we really got to start like putting this together here? Because there is stuff in the discography, Drew, that is just you. And then, you know, then I'll be listening through and going, there she is. I hear her. There she is. You know, and I imagine there's going to be more of that coming now. But so what was the final impetus there to say like, okay, Drew's got this thing? Like, what point was that in the year? You know, it was pretty recently, I think, right? Okay.
Yeah, and I think like I remember you just kept getting like encouragement from outside people about your music, and he just started writing songs. And one day he came to me and he said, "Hey, listen to this." And I said, "Okay." And he's like, "And see if you come up with any words or melodies." Or okay. And I said, "Okay." So I was home alone. I was doing laundry, folding laundry, and I was listening. And it was Hop Along that, and I just kept like kind of humming while I was doing laundry. Okay. And then I came to, actually, I think I sent him a voice memo.
Yep.
And I was like,
really? Okay.
And then there wasn't any words yet. It was just like humming. And then he's like, okay. And then we were kind of like, you know, just going to work, doing our thing. And then he just comes to me and he has all these lyrics. Like, he'll just do that. He'll just disappear, come to me, and here's the lyrics.
Here's the song.
And then he's just got it all down. And it was so cool because we put David, our son, down, and he wrote down the lyrics. We came down here into our basement. He pressed record. I sang it once. Done.
That was it. That was the first take.
Yeah.
Okay. Look at you. You're like, well, all right, you know, I'll stop from the laundry and just like throw down one great take, but then I really have to get back to it, Drew. So like, okay. So there was a lot to unpack there. So you start, so that was the song that you did with Danny and Kit, right? Like that was right. So talk to me about like the origins of that a little bit first, because I know you were very careful to give, you know, some credit there to the parts that your old bandmates had written. So like what's the story of Hop Along before we got to, you know, One Take Wonder over here in the basement? what was the backstory there? Yeah.
So back in let's see, that would have been 2008, 2009. So that was right after we got married. Let's see, Danny and Kit and I formed a band, and we had played together in other bands for, you know, a long time. Yeah. And Danny wrote that bass line, which I love. It's a great bass line. That bass line. Yeah. And then Kit wrote the guitar part. And I, you know, just like with all the songs, like I wrote the lyrics and vocals. Right. And we never even got it pieced together where we played a live show. Oh, which sucked. Yeah. But we could never, you know, stay together or, you know, have a drummer for long enough or, you know, a second guitar.
Get all the pieces of Voltron together. Yeah, I'm familiar with that.
It was always difficult. Yeah. So I wrote the verses to that song. And then the chorus, anytime like I'd write something, it just wasn't clicking. It just didn't work for me. Okay. So when I went to record it, you know, again here in February, I'm like, okay, I'm going to actually record this. And, you know, I recorded the verses and I'm like, okay, this is the perfect opportunity to get Christina to, you know, do these choruses. So, and I wanted to give her the opportunity to come up with a melody for it. Yeah. And, you know, you wrote down some lyrics too. They just didn't seem to fit. Right. So she sang some vocals. I'm like, okay, I got yeah, that's perfect.
Okay,
I'll go
so we
right-
had a melody, but we didn't have lyrics yet for the chorus.
right. I went
Okay.
wrote the lyrics once I, was hearing what she was humming along to. I'm like, okay, this will work perfect.
So how cool is that? Okay, so it was like you knew you didn't have either the melody or the lyrics that you needed.
Mhm.
Christina comes along, finds you a melody, and then you're like, I got it. And then just you went off and you wrote the lyrics and came. Okay, so that was really a collaboration then, because
Oh, yeah.
you needed something to sing a melody to, and then he needed your melody to write the lyrics, and then boom, you come in and you record it. So okay, I love that. So you guys then obviously realized this is something we need to do more of. And now you
Yeah.
are. This
Yeah.
is good.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you had that epiphany. So before we get too much further, I want to make sure that everybody gets to hear the music that we're talking about. So we're going to pivot a little bit. It would have probably made sense to play Hop Along after having just discussed it, but we're not going to do that because I had a song I requested and they're going to play that one instead. So why don't you tell everybody just a teeny tiny bit musically about A Patient Soul, which is the new release. As of the time of taping, this just came out yesterday, so it is fresh off the grill. So tell everybody a little bit about it. When we come back, we'll talk about it more.
We have, once again, we've been together for such a long time, and we have a 3-year-old son. So he came along. He's a COVID baby,
It's something you do.
We tried for a long time, to have our own child, and it just wasn't happening. So we kind of came to a point where we're just like, well, I guess it's just not meant to be.
Yeah.
And then boom.
Surprise.
I know it was great. So, you're talking to probably the 2 happiest, parents ever. Cause he,
Especially of a 3-year-old. Yes.
yes.
Yeah. So
and
the lyrics, guys, I want you when you're watching and listening to pay attention to the lyrics because they're really beautiful. And we're going to talk more about it when we come back. But this song really touched me, and just let's not even try to say anything else about it. Let's just let everybody enjoy. This is A Patient Soul by The Winter War. So I have to say, I really, you know, having listened to everything else that you guys have done, you know, it's so great to me that this is the new song, right? I mean, by the time this airs, you may have released something else, but I mean, first of all, because just musically is beautiful, right? I mean, it really, I love the big drama of the piano and the synth, and you know, it's one of the things that I kind of identify with shoegaze, I think, is this, the fact that the vocals tend to be pretty faded back for the most part. They're not front and center in a song, which I always think is an interesting choice. Like Steam Slicer does that. He's not shoegaze at all, but you know, where you're not so focused on the vocals and the lyrics and the vocal melody that you're only really paying attention to that, you know. And I think that when things are intentionally mixed, where the vocals are almost on par with everything else, if not behind everything else to a degree, it really makes you listen to the song in a different way. But Drew was nice enough to actually send me lyrics, so I didn't even have to pay too much attention, you know, on my own to figure them out, which it's, you obviously can understand them. But I really, the music alone is so pretty, and if you didn't have lyrics for this, it still would have been a great song, right? I mean, that bridge, or at least what I think of as the bridge, it gets all kind of swirly and dreamy, and then Christina, when you come in, you know, it's just, it opens everything up. And I got a real, and I people are probably so tired of hearing me say this on this show, but I only ever make comparisons when I think they're favorable. So if you don't like it, I apologize, but I think it's a good thing. I got a real Kate Bush feel from the vocals on this. Like, there's just that, you know, she has that timbre that nobody else has, and you know it's Kate Bush when you hear like a note, but she's got this very evocative, ethereal kind of timbre, and between your voice just as it is in your own timbre and then the way that it's reverbed and affected, you know, it built into this thing where, you know, it's just so beautiful. And then easily half the song is essentially an instrumental, right? You know, and I love that choice too, because you didn't need it not to be, you know, the music was enough on its own. I'm glad you had the lyrics, I'm glad you had the vocals, and I'm glad we actually got to sit with just the instrumentation and really feel it. So I love that. But then when you hear what the song is about, and it doesn't smack you in the face, you know, you're not sitting there saying, and then we waited and there was a child, you know, like, it's not like that. But it you know, when I listened and I read them. And again, you know, as I asked you before we started rolling, you know, I don't know if I'm Rorschaching my own experience onto this, but as somebody who, you know, was in a relationship where there was infertility for a long time, and, you know, having lost babies and all of that, I'm going, okay, I'm getting a real sense here that this was something that was very long waited for, you know, and the way. So why don't you guys, you know, just run through the lyrics a little bit for me? For everybody, just so that people can really pay attention and understand, because they're just so beautiful. And I love the imagery, and the imagery in the context of the instrumentation. And then when you put the cherry on top with Christina's vocals, especially, you know, like, you know, talk me through the songwriting process for that, because I have to imagine waiting all that time, you know, as you said, being the happiest parents ever, and believe me, I can completely relate to that. You know, like, talk to me about the process of this song, A Patient Soul.
Yeah, so I guess you know, I got to a point where I'm like, I just want to write a song for him and about him. Mm-hmm. And so what I was trying to, you know, highlight or think about when I was writing was, you know, kind of have it detail out those times where we were waiting, mm-hmm. and how it just, you know, was, you know, kind of seemed maybe like a lost opportunity. And so I wanted to definitely highlight that in the first few lines of the song, the first verse. And then the second verse, I was trying to use imagery. The imagery that I had in my mind was him being up in the heavens, watching us waiting, mm-hmm. waiting, and just waiting. And he's just waiting for his permission. And then it's like, okay, now it's time.
Yeah.
And so like the bridge, like you're talking about, that quiet part, which is such a big thing, I think, too, with a lot of in
Yes.
my genre that we try to kind of maybe fit into, is the loud, soft dynamic.
Yep.
And so that's supposed to symbolize him actually being born, and then it goes into, you know, the joyous, or last part of the song, which is, I wanted it to be as beautiful as I could make it. And
you did.
and
You
the
really
music I felt was beautiful. And then when I wrote a melody for Christina, and then the words, I'm like, oh, this is, I before she even recorded, I'm like, this is gonna be good. I was just like, I cannot wait to hear her part.
Yeah. So, okay. So Christina, Drew hands this to you after you stopped crying. What happened? Like, because you had to have, right? I mean, like, this is just, it's too pretty not to. And especially after, I mean, you know, that is a you know, you come out of, I mean, I know you were in the military, but like, that's a battle. That's a real battle, that just, you know, that weight. So, you know, did you know he was writing it? Did you know, was it a surprise? Was it, you know, did you get it sort of bits and pieces, or was it just, here, this is the song, I want you to sing it?
So he showed me lyrics, and then he would work on it some more. And then when he had it finished, and it was finished for quite a while, and he said, well, I want you to sing the whole thing. And I kept reading it, and I'm like, well, I don't know, like, how I would sing this. Okay, you know. And then he finally, I think you were getting impatient with me.
Yeah.
Because he's like, are we going to record? Are we going to record? I'm like, yeah. And then we never did. So then he recorded the first half, and I listened and I liked it. And I said, okay, let's leave that your half, and then I'll just sing this other half. And so when we were recording, I started singing and then started crying. So then I told you. I can't. I can't. So then I, you know, gathered myself, and we had to do it a couple of times because I kept crying happy, you know, like happy tears.
Yeah.
But I would just say that, you know, the lyrics saying, you know, he was waiting for a perfect time to come. Drew and I were both sober. I actually just celebrated 9 years on the 25th.
Wow. Congratulations, Christina. That's amazing. Congratulations. 9 years. That's huge. Like 2 days is huge. 9 years is like, so good for you. Wow.
Yeah. And Drew as well. I mean,
it'll be 9 years in October.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So it kind of just seemed like, through all the things that we've been through in life, it just we were finally in a better place. And I have a 20-year-old daughter, and I met Drew when she was 4. Okay. And so, you know, it's like we raised Devin together, and all those years we got pregnant once. I'm a nurse, and I graduated nursing school, and literally like 3 months or 4 months after nursing school, we were pregnant. And then it was almost like, you're pregnant. And then I lost it right away. Yeah. And that was really painful. And and I remember I did not want to go through that ever again. I'm like, I'm afraid to get pregnant again because losing it was so hard.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was back in 2013. So it took all those years, and I would go to the doctor, they would run tests, and, you know, they're like, well, you've proven you can get pregnant. You have a child already. I'm like, I know.
Yeah, I'm aware.
Yeah.
Thanks for that information. I know. It's sitting right here, but yeah.
Right. So it was kind of like we tried for a while, nothing would happen. And then one day, we were in church, and there was a woman that she had like a newborn, and they were sitting in front of us, and that baby just kept staring at us. And I'm like, I'm so tired of looking at everyone else's baby. I mean, I felt kind of selfish.
Oh no, I know that feeling. You're you're not jealous of them. You just want it for yourself. It's like, I'm happy for you. I also want to be able to be happy for me in the same way. I know exactly what you're talking about. Exactly.
Yeah. And so I prayed and I just asked God, hey, if this is your will for me, can I please have this child? And if it's not, can you take this desire away from me?
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
why
Right.
do I have this?
One or the other. Right. Yeah. The limbo is too hard. It's too hard.
Yeah. And at that time I just said, well, I'm ready to receive it. If it's your will. And literally like in 2 months we were pregnant.
Okay. Look at that.
Yeah.
So really for you guys, it felt like all the stars aligned. You were, you had been sober a long time. And again, I mean, that's, we talk a lot about mental health and addiction on this show. And I've never met in my life either, through this show or just in any context or even in my own, extended family, someone who is an addict that didn't begin that with trauma somewhere, and so like there's just so much that people carry around, and sometimes that's the only way you can carry it, is to not really be sober and not be as present in some way. And I'm always so proud. It's such a I always feel stupid saying it, but I'm just always so proud of you guys and people who can take that and face it and turn it around, and to put that context on the lyrics, of just waiting, he's waiting and he's waiting, and David's up there and he's waiting and he's like, all right, I know it's you two, but you got to get your crap together. You gotta be ready for me and then I'll come. I love all of that. And I love that that's something that you guys got. I mean, it's just, it's one of the hardest things that you can live through is wanting a child and not being able to have a child, and what you said, Christina, is so important too, that, it's not everybody ends up getting there, and then when you're in that series of years where you're not getting there and you think, well, maybe I never will, you're exactly right. Like, okay, I could deal with it if I just didn't want it so much, so like, can we either make this happen or like, make me want a puppy instead? Like, could we just, can we not make this the thing that's all consuming for me? And, I don't think enough people talk about infertility and talk about, I mean, as much as people discuss it and it's so much better than it used to be, so many people go through it. Like so many people go through it and there's still a taboo around it. And I never understand why, it's like, it's biology. You're just, for whatever reason. And sometimes it's not, and I went through that too. Doctors would be like, well, you've been pregnant 3 times, so clearly you can do it. And I'm like, that helps me literally not at all. Like the getting pregnant part is fine. I want to stay pregnant though. And like have the actual baby at the end. And, and a lot of times there are just no answers. And even when there are answers, there really isn't anything you can do about it. So, I mean, I heard this song and I read the lyrics and I went, okay, I recognize this. And one of the things that I love so much about the song is that the song is the journey, right? The beginning of the song is that, that sort of, I hate to use the word, but that sort of barren space of just, we're waiting for something, we're wanting something, and just this idea that, maybe this is never going to come, maybe it's just not meant for us, maybe it's never going to happen. And, and I love actually that both of you ended up singing it. I mean, this was something that was the two of you, and it's something that is the two of you, and David is the two of you. And so like, it all works out really beautifully. But I just, when you get to that, as I keep calling it, and for some reason that's the word that keeps coming to my mind, that swirly, dreamy bridge, when Christina comes in, it does get very quiet. And that's one of the things about the Winter War in general that I love, is just, as you said, Drew, that dynamic play and shift, and so many, songs don't pay enough attention to dynamics at all, because it's, you know, it's one thing to be able to be really loud. It's one thing to be able to be really quiet. It's another thing to juxtapose those against each other and what that does for you emotionally, you know? And in a song like this, to have that breath, you know, that you're kind of holding and then taking, you know, and then the song just blossoms into this, it's just joy. It's just unbridled joy. It's just this glorious, grateful, beautiful wish that's been answered, you know, and I loved sitting in that and going, even if that's not what this song is about, I'm ignoring it, because that's what that's what it's about to me, you know. And so I was so glad when I was like, is this really? And you were like, yeah, it's good. I was like, yeah, okay, because even if it wasn't, that's canon for me now. Like that's the song. But I love that people who have been through it, like we have that song now, you know, that's something that, you know, people who are on the other side of hope, who have gotten the child that they wanted, however it happened, you know, can listen to that and relate. And then the people who are still in the darkness side of it, you know, maybe can look at that and go, okay, you know, they were here too. You know, these are footprints that Drew and Christina left, you know, in despair, and I can follow these and maybe get to where they are, you know. And I think anytime music can transcend itself like that and give people, and look, I mean, you know, people can interpret this any way they want, but it is such a hopeful song. You know, it is such an honest, hopeful song. And I think having those lyrics that are so raw and honest about those feelings of, are we ever going to get what we want? Is this ever going to happen? It's so important, because, you know, music is such a healing thing. It's such a connecting thing. And to have something like this where, you know, I feel like Opportune did a song about miscarriage, Chris from Bone Locker, and his wife, and it was the same kind of, and it's a different song. You know, it's still more in the darkness side of things, you know, and just really how beautiful it was to even if it can't give you hope in a moment, to know that somebody else out there has felt that, you know, and has lived that, and is sharing it with other people, so that they know that they're not alone. So I guess this is my very long-winded way of saying thank you guys for making this on a bunch of levels. So I mean, was it Drew, when you were writing it, did it just come very quickly? Was it hard I mean, the lyrics specifically, was it, you know, did you write it in pieces, or did it all kind of come at once?
It kind of all came at once.
Okay.
Most often when I write songs, it comes pretty quickly.
Okay.
Always enjoyed writing. Like, I've written poetry like my whole life, it seems. Okay. And this one, yeah, it just I just kept trying to come up with you know, get myself in a certain headspace and then just let it flow. And when it comes to music too, I count syllables, like when I'm writing.
Oh,
and,
okay.
I've been employing this new thing. I did this with the last couple songs. I'll write all the music, and then before writing a vocal melody, what I'll do is I'll write a keyboard part, and that will be the vocal melody.
Stand in, right?
And
yeah.
Then,
okay.
Yeah, and then I count the, you know, syllables for each phrase, and then I'm like, okay, and then that's what I'm working within.
So okay, so you're paying a lot of attention to meter at that point. It is essentially like a poem that you're. Okay, wow, that's very cool. Okay.
So it came pretty quickly because I knew what I wanted to convey.
So when you're writing in general, do you usually start with lyrics, or is it more likely to be a guitar riff or a bass line or just an idea that you have? Like, what's your songwriting process in general?
Well, when I was younger, like so early 20s, when I first started writing music, I would write the lyrics first. And I found that much more difficult to make into it.
Yeah.
So I've learned just in, you know, the songwriting process over this last year when I started the Winter War was make the music first, and then I would conceptualize what I wanted the song to be about. Like I just wrote another one yesterday and was like, and then I kind of, this morning, I was like, okay, I want this song to be about this. And so now I'm going to kind of just, you know, think about that and fit it into that.
Okay, so the music is always the guide then. You're always okay. Yeah. So then talk to me about that when you're beginning, you know, are you one of these people who, and I always think this is such a magic trick, will just sit down and go, I want to write a song today. And then you can actually begin doing that? Or do you get a bolt of inspiration, or is it a little bit of a mix of things? Like, what's your, here we go, I have something. What do you usually begin with? How does that look for you?
For me, it's opportunity. If no one is around, you know, I can write a song, you know. So lately it's been that way. It's just like, oh wow, you know, Christina's not here, David's not here, the house is empty. I'm gonna write a song, and then I will. Yeah, it's.
I would say this last one though. There was a video because we moved from Arizona to Montana in 2021, and it was really cold. We moved here in December, and I was in the kitchen with David, and he was playing with like little magnets on the refrigerator. And while I was doing that, Drew was playing on the piano.
Okay.
And so, like, 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, I sent him a video of that day, and it was the melody of the new song.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And so
I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was writing that.
Yeah, so it's almost like I can actually think back to like when I first met him all these years. There's been little songs that he'll just play on the piano, and all these years now there's a song. You know, like that's just cool. Bits and pieces here and there.
Yeah, yeah.
So like that piece that you're starting on was something that you were just doing, just a
noodling
Sunday
around. Yeah. So you always have music in you. It's just sort of recognizing when one of them is going to turn. So, I mean, but again, though, is it generally a piano line? Is it does it depend what you're doing? Is it always one instrument that starts you?
It's almost always piano. Yeah. Okay. There's only one that started with a bass line, and the only reason that I did that was I just wanted to try to write a song without having a piano in it. Okay. Like, I want to see if I can do this, and that was
there was no piano to start with. Okay, I gotcha. So I mean, what I would like to do, because there aren't too many, is I would like to go through each song a little bit, just to kind of get people familiar, if that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay. So, I mean, we talked about A Patient Soul, and really just, I mean, it's, well, you know how I feel about it, but I was so glad that I got it in time for this, you know. I sent you an email a couple of days ago and I was like, I know it's coming out tomorrow, but I'm prepping, and it would be so helpful if I was like, can I get it like a couple hours early or whatever? And then I was like, I don't even know I don't think we got to each other or whatever. And then so I woke up yesterday morning and I was like, is it there? Is it there? And there it was. So I was very happy that one that I got to hear. I would have probably fought you on it if if it was coming out like tomorrow. I would be like, Drew, you're playing it for me. I want to hear it. So I'm really glad that I did. But so the one before that, which I think was from September, was Fever Dream, right?
Yeah.
I love this song. I really do. It just, one of the things that I noticed that you do a lot, Drew, is you will find a phrase, usually on piano, and you will build it. You know, you will repeat it, you will build it. It's the anchor for the song, you know? And so, you know, you've got this very dramatic phrase on, I guess it's kind of a sus piano or, you know, and then the strings come in. I'm like, okay, you know, and it's so beautiful, but it's sad, you know, it's sad. And it's got this very cinematic kind of feel to it. You know, like there are some songs that I listen to, and because I'm, you know, essentially an 80s kid, you know, I want to score like, you know, John Cusack running in the rain to somebody. And like, that's the song, you know, and it's like one of those, and it's funny because I'm gathering the song is actually about like siblings. Which is a very, I don't think, unless John is running in the rain to Joan Cusack, you know, it's not quite the image I have in my head, but, you know, and then like halfway through the song, everything gets kind of bright and, you know, kind of the mood shifts a little bit. And so talk to me about Fever Dream. Like why, you know, was this a song for your brother?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So where did that one come from, and how did you build that one?
Well, so my brother and I are almost exactly 4 years apart.
Okay.
And, he was really, he was a great big brother, really influential in my life. Like my dad worked a lot. And so my brother would kind of fill in on certain things, like help me learn how to ride a bike, those types of things.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And, somewhere along the line, we got really competitive, would argue, fight all the time.
I hear I'm an only child, but I hear that's almost unavoidable.
Yeah.
I think you're legally required as siblings to do that. So, okay.
Yep. So, we've had our run-ins over the years. I mean, we've gone sometimes, it seemed like years without talking. So I was just like, you know what? That was one of those instances where I was just like, you know what? I'm going to write a song for my brother.
Oh, okay.
And I'd been playing that piano part for a while. And then I just, wrote the lyrics. And I wanted conceptually, I wanted it to think about like, being like not asleep, but almost asleep. Like when you have a fever, like you're just like, and just thinking about like all those things when we were, all the good things, all the bad things over the years.
Yeah.
And that turn is just, basically like, it's like a conversation. It's almost like a letter to him. It's like, you see how far we've come. Yeah. And then I'm like kind of reminding him of how we used to play and, play catch and all these things. And
it's so beautiful. And you have a line in there that's something like, I know it wasn't always easy to be my brother, and I just, there's so much baked into that, I mean, that could be a gloss, right? Like, oh, sometimes I took your basketball when you wanted to play, or that could be like much deeper than that. And that's a little bit of what you're describing, I guess. But, this idea of like, now we have families of our own, and now we have, and I love just the home movie feel of the lyrics of that, and I think that's part of what I mean, because it's cinematic in a John Cusack in the Rain kind of way, but it is also a sitting in the basement looking at old movies of the family growing up. And it's beautiful that it operates on both those levels. And I think, the theme that I get with the Winter War is just that it's a genre that could feel disconnected, because it is inherently sort of a dreamlike, suspended almost kind of genre. Everything is very, again, I keep using the word, but I think it's appropriate, sort of ethereal, and there's this very dreamy quality to it. And, that could be distancing in a way, because sometimes there's so much attention on certain genres where, people aren't necessarily infusing it lyrically with such content or, emotion or anything that's really going to be impactful beyond just sounding pretty. But everything that you guys write is very personal, and I appreciate that so much. And even if it's not personal specific to you, there's a story, and it's a meaningful one. I mean, we're going to get to White Death and Third Man Syndrome, and I'm very eager to talk about both of those. But like, I love that I would be happy even if your lyrics were, blah, 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 there's a bird over there, and, I love the shoes I'm wearing, or like, I would still enjoy the music. But like, as I've said a million times on this show, when there's something to the lyrics, it's always going to richen it for me. It's always going to make the music stick more for me, because, you might remember a melody or you might not, but, generally you'll remember a lyric that really resonates with you. And so I even as somebody who doesn't have siblings, I was kind of like, oh, like it made me feel nostalgic for something I didn't even grow up with, which is kind of a feat. So well done you. But I mean, did your brother, if I may ask, and if not, feel free not to answer, but did your brother hear it? What did he think? Did you get any feedback or?
Well, as with the rest of my family, they're like, oh, I couldn't understand the words. so I had to send him the lyrics. Okay. And then he messaged me back saying, that he was humbled by it, and he he enjoyed it. So, mission accomplished there, I guess. Yeah. Just like I'm glad you liked it, Neil,
That's good. But you guys are so, you're very humble, so I'm like, talk to me about your process, and you're like, well, I'll think of something and then I'll write it down and then there's a song. Like, and so what's your brother thinking? He's like, oh, he thought it was good, and so yeah, then there was a song. I'm like, okay, like,
Yeah.
I appreciate that you're self-effacing that way, but but it's we've talked about 2 songs of yours really so far. I mean, I know Hop Along was in there, which is kind of a different piece because it wasn't entirely you, Drew, or anything like that. But, both of these songs and the ones that we're going to get into next, they all really, like, you're connecting people, and like, you're very blasé about it as I'm talking to you, but I really feel like that's what music is for. Like, that's the whole point, right? It's that you can speak to someone you'll never meet, in a completely different country, part of the world, like stage of life, whatever. And you can communicate your story to them and then their story to them and then their story, almost back to you just because they're listening to what you're doing. And so, like, I just think it's very cute that you guys are so like, well, okay about it. But like, it's a great thing that you're doing, that you're making music that people can really, take solace in, or at least feel recognized in, and so, and again, that they don't even have to do that though. This is absolutely music that, even if it's like your family, they can't understand the words, turn that up, I can't hear it, like it doesn't, you don't need it, but you're missing out on a big part of it if you don't pay attention to the lyrics. So thank goodness for Spotify when they actually put them up. Right. But so talk to me now about, because I get the sense there's a big story behind this one, an empty room, a locked room, because I have a very weird take on what I think the song is about, and I don't even want to say it necessarily, but now I've said that. So I feel like, do I have to at this point? But tell me, because it's such a specific thing that I have in my head, and I'm probably very wrong. So what was the song about? What was the story there?
Well, it's funny that you frame it that way, because it's I have like a group of like old friends. Like, I think of them like a focus group. Okay. Like I share my music with them before I put it out. And I got all kinds of different responses as to what they thought it was about, which I was like, all right, that's great. Because I want, you don't want it to be, sometimes you don't want things to be so specific that it only hits that one note. It's
narrow. Yeah, exactly.
That being said, I can, go into what it is about. And it's, it's very sad. It's a tragic song. Like, even while I was like coming up with the lyrics, like, I was crying, like I was sobbing, thinking.
Right, now I'm starting to think I might be right. Well, I got like a missing child feel.
That's exactly this. Yeah. It's,
okay.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
Because like when you go through
every parent's worst nightmare.
Okay. All right. So tell me where please, Lord, this is not something that you have personal experience with.
No.
Tell me. Okay, good.
No.
Tell me why you had to tell that story, and how did that come about?
I don't, maybe just osmosis through, we haven't even seen the movie The Sound of Freedom, but it was like, you hear a bunch of people talking about it. And then, people bring up like the statistics that are going on in our world, right, and country is, like how many children go missing, and it's terrible. And I wrote a piano part, and I was like, man, this sounds like a really sad song. And
I would say, yeah.
So the song is written from the perspective of a husband kind of imploring his wife, who's, they're both just in a terrible spot, obviously.
Yeah.
Trying to come to grips with what's happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's, so the empty room and locked room, it's, like an empty room waiting for another, taken person to occupy it. So so like I said, it's not something that, a lot of people want to talk about. It's, that being said, from a musical standpoint, I think that's my best song that I've written from a, just a global perspective. But it's even though I created it, sometimes it's hard for me to listen to it.
Yeah. Yeah. What, and please don't in any way take from this question that I'm disagreeing with you on it, but what makes you feel like this is your best musical work? Is it the impact that it has? Is it like literally like a sonic balance that you feel like you struck, some combination? Why is this the best song you think you've written?
Probably a combination. It's the one that I think my vocals, personally, not because Christina didn't sing on this one.
Right.
I don't think she wanted to.
So no.
It's the lyrics are clear enough. The vocals are that everyone can understand them.
Yeah.
It's almost like a step outside some of the other ones. It's more of an emo song. A lot of my friends that I've known for a long time say, "Oh, that sounds like one of my favorite songwriters, David Bazan from Pedro the Lion."
Okay.
People will say, "Oh, that's yeah." When I hear that song, I can see, I know that's kind of almost like a major influence on your songwriting.
Okay. Wow. Okay. That can't feel bad to hear.
No, yeah, exactly.
And you're right. I mean, it is more spare, I think, than what you usually do, and I think that there's even, with the background vocals, there's an insistence to it, that da 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 da, like there's a real heartbeat in that, but it's intense, there's tension in that, and because there's less going on musically than generally what the Winter War will do. I always notice that, whenever there's a song that's like and not to in any way say that everything else sounds the same, because it doesn't, which was one of the things I was actually curious about, and I'm honest to a fault, I guess, sometimes, that, when I sit down and I'm like, okay, this is a genre I'm not super, super familiar with. And I'm like, is this going to be one of those things where I feel like I'm listening to some version of the same song 9 times or whatever, which I don't even mind necessarily if it's a good song structure, but I'm like, nope, that's not what's happening here at all. So I don't mean to imply that everything else that I heard sounded similar, but this was different enough that I went, okay, because when someone's got a signature or a general process for how they build a song and the things that they want in it, and some of these songs are so layered and there's so much complexity and there's so much going on, that when you distill it into just a few elements, my ear goes, okay, I'm paying attention to it more, because that's a choice that means something. I believe, whether or not it actually was true for the musician, I believe that everything that a musician chooses to put or not put in a song is intentional, and so I love trying to kind of grok what that was, and then once I started to listen to the lyrics, and I just got this pit in my stomach, listening to it. It's just such a bleak, it's such a bleak picture that you're painting with the lyrics. And it was why I was like, geez, because at first I thought maybe it was like, I immediately got like, okay. And I'm not like, oh, I'm a genius or whatever, but like, it's what you've conveyed. You did a very good job of it. Obviously that, it was a loss of a child, and I didn't know but then the title, first of all, and then the way that the lyrics unfold, it's like, this wasn't something that happened this was something that happened to them, and what really got me too was it made me sit in how you lose people twice when something like that happens. You lose the child, and then you lose the other person, your spouse or the other parent or whatever, because you can, and I mean, I unfortunately have watched couples go through things where they've lost children and they can't find each other anymore, and it's just, the grief is too thick and they can't see through it back to each other, and it is devastating because they've already lost everything. and then they lose it again, and so and I really, this punched me in the gut with that, and I was kind of hoping I was wrong, I really was, because I was like, maybe it's not this dark, but I appreciate that you do that. I appreciate that you write about the stuff that people don't necessarily want to talk about, because sometimes you can communicate about those things more easily in music than you can, I was just, I was just interviewing Pointless Culture, and it was a very different conversation, but, they were talking about how, they can, express themselves in ways through music that maybe people wouldn't want to have conversations about those things, and it's one of the, the superpowers of music. And so I just, what fascinates you guys fascinates me, like these are weighty things that you're trafficking in, this is not simple stuff. This isn't just, blah, 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 let's go get a hot dog. you're really I mean, maybe that's the next song, I don't know, but it could be, but add to the hot dog genre. But it worked, it worked. Like, you got me. I was right there in it with you, and it's just that is a hard one to listen to, but well worth it though. Well worth it to me.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, yeah, it's like I said, like sometimes it's hard for me to listen to it too. But
Christina, were you just like, nope, I don't, I don't want to.
When he was finished with it and I sat and listened to it, all I could say, just kind of like what you're talking about, the pit in your stomach feeling.
Yeah, I
had that, and then obviously I cried, and then he asked if I wanted to sing it, and I'm like, I don't think I can.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
So, and then I loved the way he sounded. So I'm like, just leave it. I just like it just the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and actually I'm glad that you said that too, because Drew, I've been, waxing rhapsodic about Christina's vocals, and I don't want to leave yours out. You have a very cool timbre, and I love that there's this kind of, you to sing to this kind of music, you have to have I'm trying to, this is the thing with this show. If I just wrote out questions and I knew what I was going to say, I'd be able to be more articulate than I ever am. But like, I'm like, you're watching my brain work in real time, and which is kind of a car accident in slow motion. But like, you can't, there are so many ways you can't sound vocally and have it fit in this genre. You can't be too sharp. I don't mean note wise, pitch wise. I mean just in terms of the timbre. You can't be too, sort of too soft, too dreamy, because you'll get swallowed in the music, and you can't, it can't be too angry. It can't be too, and I don't like putting so many restrictions on it, but what I'm really trying to express is that I feel like there are a lot of voices that I think would sound jarring against this instrumentation. Oh,
yeah.
And the fact that you two sound so different from each other, but you both fit so well in what you're making is really cool to me, because I love any band where there's, male vocals, female vocals, like any combination of gender. Like I just feel like that adds so much dimension to a song, and especially when you start adding in harmonies and all of that, I'm a sucker for that. But like, I love that you guys, that you have, first of all, you have that option to play with, but also that, Drew, that when you are singing, it really does, your voice is perfect for what you're doing, is I guess what I'm trying to say. It's, and Christina, you too. And it really, it's just so cool to me that like, there's a song that almost nobody knows but me, I guess on I think it was one of Paula Cole's very first albums, and it's called Hush, Hush, Hush. And she, I think, was a background singer for Peter Gabriel for a really long time. And she put out a debut album, and then she got him to guest on it, which I was like, oh, can you imagine just being like, hey, I called my old boss and I asked him to come sing on my helmet. It's Peter Gabriel, and she's got this very sort of breathy, beautiful, soprano going in the whole thing. And all of a sudden it gets to the bridge and you hear that voice, that Peter Gabriel voice, and you're like, and it just changes everything. And the way that you guys balance your vocals that way, I get that kind of like, okay, Drew has lulled me in here, and then, the songbird comes in and we were over here and then we're back over here. And like, there's so much heart in both of your vocals, which I appreciate as a singer, especially, but like, I didn't really have a big point. That was pretty much what I wanted to say, but there you go. I'm done talking about it now. So I didn't want to neglect talking about your vocals, Drew, but, when you put them on top of songs like, An Empty Room, A Locked Room, it's like, and I think that's a big part of the power. So let's move on slightly. It feels weird to say we're going to move to something more cheerful and then talk about White Death. It's really not. I feel like this is a good point to discuss the band name, because I did a little bit of a deep dive in, because I was curious, like, the Winter War it's just a cool name, right? But it actually has a meaning. And so I'm reading about this story, at 3 a.m. when I should be sleeping, and I'm probably going to butcher the name, but of Simo Halha. Okay.
Yeah,
so hey, is it Heya? Okay. So, why? It's a great story, but why was this the name of the band? Tell everybody the story, about the White Death. This is trippy. I got really fascinated by this very old story of a dude that I had never heard of in my life. But tell everybody what the story is and why this is your band name in the first place.
Yeah, the Winter War. So first off, I love alliteration. So 2 W's only okay. Oh man. So I wouldn't call myself like a pacifist, but I am very anti-war. I think that it's just it's dumb, like in every sense of the word. I just think it's we should, as the human race, we should just be focusing on more important things than conquest. So the overview on the history is like right when World War II started, Russia and USSR invaded Finland.
Right.
And it was one of the coldest winters of the century.
Brutal, right? Like 4 below. It was or more. It was like 40 below, I think. Yep. Yeah.
And the whole background to it too is like so before World War II, Joseph Stalin, the dictator for the USSR, like he was super paranoid, and there was something that I've called the Great Purge, where he just got rid of all these generals and all these great military leaders because he was terrified of them uprising against him. Right. So he had them all executed or sent off to work camps, which is basically the same thing.
Right.
And so right as World War II started, he wanted to take Finland back. Like there was periods of time where it was part of Russian rule. So they invaded Finland, and the USSR lost, estimates vary, but between 120 and 180,000 troops in a 3-month span.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, so the band name is like meant to do exactly what you did and look it up.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. It's this specific period, right? It was like 39 to 40.
Yep.
Right. And they called it the Winter War because it was so freaking cold, right?
Yep.
But then there's this dude.
Right. So Simo Heya was probably the most prolific sniper that ever on record. He had over 500 confirmed kills in 100 days of combat. Mm-hmm. And so, I wanted the band name to kind of like highlight the futility of war. Mm. And the story of this guy was just so interesting that I had to incorporate it. So what I did is I wrote the lyrics. The lyrics to that song are more intentional than any other song that I wrote. Every single word in that is meant to convey something specific. Mm-hmm. But
that's a real poem. Yeah. That one. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Thanks. Yeah. That one is So I wrote it as like from the perspective of it was difficult too, because this is when I first started writing songs, trying to write it knowing that Christina was going to be singing it.
Right.
Because sometimes it's hard writing for someone else's voice.
Oh yeah.
Which
absolutely, especially when you're used to singing your own stuff. So
yeah, so I think that's kind of one of the things that held me up for so many years too, with trying to collaborate. So so I told her, I wrote it from the perspective of a woman who's either, her husband or her son or both are having to go off to war. Yeah. And, so it's the whole, I told her to sing it from the perspective of that. And so they're marching to north and west, they march again. They're marching to Finland, and then it's just, White Death, and that's meant to be an analogy also. It's not just the sniper White Death, right, who everyone would, the Russians were very fearful of him. So we should say, so the again, because now I'm an expert in this apparently, but that he would dress in all white camo, and the Soviet forces were not. So they were very easy to spot, which, not so great in all this snow. And so basically you had somebody who, he would hold snow in his mouth when he went to fire so that his breath wouldn't give away his position. This guy was not kidding around. And so, all they knew was that there was this white, mysterious figure that, and I don't know, I read that some people think that he was actually given the nickname, White Death because of everything that he did. And then some people said, oh, they think it's just, basically it's so cold, you go out there and you die. But either way, like the song, the topic is, it's again, not about a hot dog. Like we're talking about pretty heady stuff here, but it was so cool how, I'm not somebody who's necessarily one for history. I know some people absolutely love it. And I just, for some reason, it's also abstract in my head, which is not great, but I've always been that way. But between the band name and the title of the song, I was curious enough to go and spend, an hour or whatever reading about this. And it's interesting because, this is somebody who, is essentially, at least pacifistic in a way, writing a song and naming a band after something that is very clearly, not pacifistic, being related to war. And, but this idea that, he basically, when people would ask him about it, would say, I did what I was told to do. I did my job. And if it weren't for everyone else around me doing the same thing, we wouldn't be here. Like things would have gone very differently. And then somebody who, ends up getting shot in the face and then he can't be in the military anymore. This is a story, guys. Like if you don't already know about it, it is worth going and researching for that alone. But this song though, again, this is another one where, I identify, your piano phrasing, your riff, and that you repeat and repeat. And you've got, is it violin in there? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Keyboard. Okay.
Right. But I even when I know it's synth, I'm like, it's a violin sound. We're going to call it violin, even if it's not an actual violin, but and it's very slightly dissonant to the piano. Am I right? And I think that's intentional because there's, again, tension there, or you're smiling because no, it wasn't, or
no,
or am I just wrong?
I have what I did the keyboard part for that song is an old Casio tone keyboard, which I love. It's like a 70s keyboard.
Okay.
And there's
it's brown.
Yeah, well, no, that's the other one.
That's the other one.
Brown one, that was the one I had a popsicle stick for the D because because I broke it.
Yeah.
But no, I got another one that was just like it. Oh. And I love the violin and cello voice on it. And there's a tuner on the back. You can actually, it's an old school like modulator.
Oh,
but
okay.
But you don't hold it or slide it back and forth. You just like turn it and that's it. So it was, I made it slightly.
No, I knew you did it on purpose because you're too careful with what you do for that to have been like, oh, we were just accidentally slightly out of tune. But I thought it was cool because it does.
Yeah, I wanted it to sound almost eerie.
It does. No,
and that's-
I actually, this the word I was going to use was it gives you kind of a spooky feel, but eerie is a smarter way of saying that. But and it fits. It puts you in a place right off the bat. And then this one, I don't know if you know the band The Sundays, but Harriet Wheeler, I think her name is the singer, and Christina, you were giving me big Sundays vocal vibes on this one. And I there's so much build to this. I noticed the drumming a lot in this. The programming, again, this was pre-Buddy programs, but and then again, you come back quieter in that second verse. We've got those big dynamics again that the Winter War is known for, right? So, but it's very atmospheric, and it's very, again, cinematic. And you have a great line in there. It's like,
it's probably
Conquest has its consequence. Yeah, it is. And I love how you knew which one I was going for, but there's almost a like a Broadway feel to it. Like it's almost like you could, the point in Miss Saigon where the helicopter comes down and everything is just like, so whatever. It's got that same kind of gravitas for me. And I love that that's the band name. Like it's just so, I'm curious, Christina, and this might be a thorny question, but as somebody who is in the military, where are you on all of this? Because this is, there's a lot packed into what Drew said and just the story and the literary illusion and all of that. So what was this a joint decision for the name for the band? Was this something that Drew had done? What's the?
So it was Drew. However, I really respect his point of view. And to me, it's that's really cool. He told me about White Death, and I obviously did the research as well. And I'm that is amazing. But yes, having a military background myself, I was in the Navy. And I was in during September 11th, 9/11.
Mm-hmm.
And our battle group was the first to go out. So I was part of the first battle group to respond and to retaliate.
Wow.
So, when it comes to war, it's close to home.
Sure.
And in the military, or in the Navy, actually, I see it different than ground troops. But I got to see the first bomb missiles being, shot or released. And so there was mixed feelings. I felt that righteous anger, we're getting you back. But then I also felt sadness for innocent women and children. And to know that I was part of that. It's, it's like you're stuck right in the middle.
Yeah.
Because I have pride for, being a U.S. sailor. But with that comes a lot.
Yeah.
So to me, the title Winter War, it's fitting because when I think of it, I've been through it, and
at war with yourself over it a little bit too.
Yeah. And I've been out for 23 years, and I'm a nurse and I work at the VA, so I'm around veterans all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm a veteran myself, worked with veterans. So to me, it's there all the time.
Yeah. No, I so appreciate that. And I appreciate that you both can bring what you do to it, and that everything that you're making is informed by both those positions, because I don't think I've ever met anybody, I have family in the military, and, my uncle was a Marine, and just who was and had no other level to it emotionally. I've never, or even people who enlisted, and had that, and you may be able to go there that way, but you can't come back that way, and it's so important to really portray that struggle, and that push-pull and what you just said, to sit there and have all those mixed feelings at the same time, and whether it's something that happened, 100 years ago, or it's something that happened, an hour ago, none of it is easy, and so I think it's fitting for your band being as complex as you are, not just musically, but lyrically and just, topically, that's what you guys settled on. I think that's really interesting. That I understand it was also that it had two W's, Drew, but I'm going to guess that wasn't the main that wasn't the main choice. But I mean,
no, that was just a happy coincidence.
It was a bonus. But like, so again, we've talked about 4 songs. They've all been pretty intense. And you do not exactly leave that with Third Man Syndrome, but it's a little I don't think cheerier is the right word, but so I this was one of those things where I already have, homework when I prep for the show, because I listen to everything and I read everything I can, but then, I needed to learn things too to understand the titles, right? So I go and I look up Third Man Syndrome, and it's this phenomenon, right? When someone is, near death or threatened, or there's some sort of really major risk situation going on, where they feel a presence of another person that's kind of intervening to help them. So tell me about this one. What was this something that came out of something personal, or had you read about it? Or I'm just fascinated by why you write about what you write about. So where did this one come from?
So yeah, I just found it very interesting. Like I've read about this phenomenon. It hasn't happened to me personally.
Okay.
But yeah, it's exactly how you described it, where people were in a very stressful situation, a dire situation. They report having, feeling like someone is there when they're not. And it was funny. I met a guy. So I do sales for a living. I do in-home sales. And I met this guy, and I talked to him for about 3.5 hours. And he told me this story about, he's a rock hound. He loves going out and, finding rocks. And there's a lot of places around here, around Billings, Montana, to go. It's a lot of desolate areas. And he fell and he broke his leg. And he's out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, no.
And so he was dragging himself along, and he said, he found water, thankfully, but he said by the 3rd day, when he stopped to build a fire, he just instinctively, because it was like someone was there, he turned it to this non-existent person and said, "Do you think we should?" And then just realized no one was there. And so, I thought about that, and I was just like, and I had, heard about this, phenomenon.
Yeah.
So I, researched it. I'm like, I'm going to write a song about that. That's a really cool, song idea. And so it's funny. And this is one that, I sang, and then I was like, well, Christina, I want you to sing it. And so I just modeled it for her.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
And then we just kept my vocal part in there too. That one, when you talk about cinematic type of music, that song right there was the last minute of that song.
Yep.
Like, man, if there's ever an opportunity for me to get in a movie
in a soundtrack, and it's so that exact, yes, it is absolutely, it's 100%. It's the that chorus, especially, just it's got soundtrack written all over it. Like it really, really does. And did you start that? That's the one that starts with the crackling fire, right?
Yep, exactly.
Was that because of the guy?
No, I just I don't know why I put that in there. I just wanted something to an intro to go with that piano really quietly, and then just kind of build, and then something progressive that kind of almost lulls you, I think, into just like a headspace. And then that whole part that, like we were saying, it sounds cinematic. That's supposed to represent being rescued, being brought out of the tribulation into and the joy that is. And right when I was writing it, because the third man syndrome, somebody that isn't there but is there, that whole people think also angels. And so during that time period when I was writing that, my grandfather passed away, and I loved him very much. And so now, like, so I recorded it, and it was about that specific thing, about, you know, making it out of the situation, and that's the joy. But after he passed, I almost envisioned like that being that you don't get out of the tribulation, you actually pass, and then that joyous part is being
I see what you're saying. I got you. Okay, so it gave you another way to interpret your own song.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
cool. No, that's and you know, again, I that's one of my favorite things about music is that it can carry you through a bunch of different things in life, you know, and it's when one song can do that in different situations, then you've really done something. But that also is the one where you guys are octaving each other, right?
Correct.
Yeah, yep. And I love that blend. I love the way that it, because again, as I said, your voices are not similar, but they blend really beautifully, which is not always the case. You know, I've been in bands with guys with great voices, and then when we sing together, it just doesn't, they don't dovetail the way they need to. And then, you know, sometimes when you do, and like, you don't even know who's singing at the end of it, because you blend so well. And I loved that choice, you know, that we're hearing both of you moving in tandem, you know, and just, again, all the depth that provides, you know, and even if you were just doing it for yourself, Drew, and you didn't have, you know, Christina to break, you know, glass in case of singing emergency or whatever, where you could bring her in anytime you want to, you could have done that. But it's really, it's just so, you know, your stuff is just so interesting, you know, and it's interesting musically, you know, but these stories and these lyrics, you know, I really, you know, I keep thinking of, like, you know, these names you may not know, but like, you know, Death Pigeon, our friend JD, who, you know, wrote a story, and his, you know, album was about, you know, it's called Volume 2, The Rewiring of Humanity. And so is the story. And each song is, a chapter title, and it's expressing this story in song, you know, and once I found that out, listening to the music, everything was just even better for me than it was the first time I had listened through without knowing that there was a story attached. And it's the same thing with you guys at very different kinds of stories, to be sure. You know, it's a metal band, and it's pretty gory what he's talking about, but with a lot of heart and intelligence to it too. But you know, you guys have that too, where you're really, you know, these are almost like literary pieces set to music in a way, you know, and I so appreciate that, you know, especially in our, you know, fast food culture at this point, not to sound like my own great grandmother or whatever. It's like, oh, you know, these days the kids don't, whatever. But like, you know, I mean, and look, I've probably said this before, but like every single generation had music that was incredibly deep. You know, you had the Beatles, you know, Something in the Way She Moves reminds me of, and then you also had to do, you know, like it, you know, everybody's got, you know, The Bird is the Word or whatever. It's not like everything, you know, was brilliant or yeah, exactly. But I mean, you know, generally, I think attention is not paid, time is not given, you know, to the stuff that tends to become really popular now, you know, and it's like, and I'm unfortunately at that stage in my life, way younger than I thought it would happen, where, you know, I'll listen to what the kids are listening to these days, and I'm like, oh, you know, and there's some great stuff, you know, I'm not going to do that where it's like, oh, you know, anything. I don't ever want to become that musician. I don't ever want to become a magician either, but I never want to be that musician or that person who's like, oh, you know, anything after 2000 is garbage. And I'm not going to like, I not that, but like, it's just always so refreshing. And this indie community, thankfully, is rife with it, you know, where people are really still saying something, you know, and like, you know, and that, you know, I'm seeing a title and I'm going off and going, well, what does that mean? You know, and then here I am like an hour later going, now I know this, you know, like this is a thing I didn't know before, you know, and I just, I dig that about you guys. I really do. But so, okay. So now we're at Hop Along, right? This was the one that was, we discussed it a little bit, but just to sort of like, tie it back together, I got a Marcy Playground vibe off of this. Do you know that song? Yeah. Do you know that band?
Oh, I just know the one song.
That Sex and Candy song? Yeah. No, I think it's because of, and I think we mentioned the bass. the bass line earlier. That's a great bass line. I mean, that you said you have a lot of fun playing that one.
Yeah, Danny Gann wrote that. My gosh, he writes a lot of good bass lines. But that song in particular, I would just play it all the time. I'm like, one of these days I'm going to record this.
Yeah, when I think back to memories throughout the years, it's that bass line.
Oh, okay.
Danny would come over throughout the years and they would jam in the garage. So I would be, making dinner. I would be attending to my daughter, doing life. Yeah. And that was in my head.
That was your soundtrack. Yeah.
Yeah. So then when we,
when I recorded it.
When he recorded it, I'm like, wow, there it is this whole time.
That's got to be very cool, and then to be the one to write the vocal melody for the chorus. You had been workshopping that song subconsciously for probably like a decade or whatever. Yeah, I mean, like that's pretty. And I love that. Like that's just so freaking cool to me. That like that's, of course you would be able to know where that needed to go. You'd been listening to it, for years and years and years. And I think it's interesting, Drew, that I just wanted to come back to it a little bit because you said earlier that anything you tried to write for that chorus just wasn't quite right. Was it? I mean, what was that? What was what was not right about what you were doing, do you think?
So, conceptually, the song was meant to be about someone who, gosh, this is starting to become a familiar theme I'm learning, who had passed away but didn't know it. And so he's just playing around basically between, where we are and where he's supposed to go. So he's, hop along, he's passing by a memory. So he's seeing, himself, like, one of my memories was my dad, when he'd come home from work, he would pick me up and let me touch the ceiling. So that's where that, that lyric is. So, and then, that's what, the first verse and second verse are about, that. And I couldn't come up with a chorus that like just meant anything to that. Like it wouldn't speak.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's true. Yeah.
And so, and once again, back then, that was when I would write the lyrics first and then try to shoehorn it into the music.
Yeah.
And it just didn't sound good. And then when Christina was humming that melody, I'm like, oh, this is perfect. I'm going to make it like, basically from a viewpoint or like put it in the headspace of like, oh, this is mom calling him home. Can't you hear me? Come on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love like that I'm wondering if it was having Christina's voice specifically that made you think of that, because it wasn't you. That's great. I love that. I love that. Yeah. No, that's great. And it goes to show, Christina, that you can write too. You may be called upon now, pressed into service to do more of that. I think Drew is trying to trick you into being in the band, I think, is what I'm getting from this whole interview. This is just a very long con, that maybe he got there early and actually saw you do karaoke and you just didn't know it. And that's what this whole marriage has been about. It's just, in 14 years, I'm going to make a band and then she's going to sing in it. And that's it. That's what it's all been about. This is just some elaborate scheme.
We'll come back to this when we're 40. Yeah.
Exactly. No, I mean, that's, and I also love that you're open to, Christina's input. Some people, they this is my thing, this is my song, and I just don't want to, and wouldn't necessarily turn it over and say, can you come up with something? There could have been a lot of pride in that of like, I will crack this nut and I will find this chorus, and you didn't. And I mean, it sounds like, Christina, you came up with it pretty quickly.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean, quickly over the course of like a decade, subliminally, but once he actually handed you the keys, you knew how to drive the thing pretty much right away. So, okay. No, I'm glad we're giving props to the bandmates, but I love that how different is it from where it began? Is it fairly faithful to what you and Danny and Kit did together?
So The bass line, yes. So when we first,
Yeah, you don't want to mess with that one.
yeah, when we first recorded, or first playing this, we had an old Tascam 8-track.
Okay.
And the first time we recorded it, it was the same tempo as the recording that I did, which is more of a walking type of tempo. And we recruited this drummer who he was really good, but he sped it up like big time. He's like, "Oh, we got to play it this fast," and I hated it.
Yeah.
I didn't care for it. So
I don't see that.
so the bass line, yes. The guitar part, which I actually play it with the piano and then put a guitar like effect over it.
Yeah.
So the guitar part is the same melody. It just doesn't sound the same as when Kit played it. The way Kit played it was beautiful. I loved the way he played that, but I can't play the guitar as well as him. So I was like, I'm just going to stay in my lane and do it this way and see how it turns out. And it turned out okay.
It's good. Yeah, and it's good. I mean, I haven't heard what you were comparing it to, but just because something is different doesn't mean it's worse. So, right. Okay, yeah, no, that's and I mean, that's the one I assume that you wrote when you were like 21 that you were talking about before. Is that the?
No, that was a Corpus Christi. That was the first.
Okay, we're not there yet. We got a couple to go. So so I think we're up to now. This is an interesting title too. What else is new? But for the Sea of Trees.
Oh, for the Sea of Trees.
Yeah. So this one, I actually, well, before I ask you, this one interested me right away because it almost, a lot of most, I would say, of you, or the rest of what I've heard you do, tends to build.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
this one kind of starts in medias res. Yeah, and I thought that was very interesting because that's not something you usually do. So, like in the same way that when, an Empty Room started and I noticed everything was very stripped down, my ears perked up. This was another one where I was like, I started it over 2 or 3 times, I think, because the first time I thought maybe Spotify had just confused itself and started in the middle. And I was like, wait, we're only 3 seconds in. So I didn't, and not because it was bad. It was just because it was not what I was used to, I was waiting for, and then, I was like, okay, I love what we're doing here. And that is it a synth vox that you've got going for those oohs, or is that actually you?
Let's see here for that song. I mean, all the oohs and all the songs are me.
Okay. So, but you sounded more synthy, for lack of a better word. Like there was something about the way that you did it that had almost like it sounded like more people, I guess. And it sounded it's a good thing what I'm trying to convey. But okay, so it was you're oohing and ahhing. So what's that for me was that was the Big Smith song. That was the one where I was like, oh, I hear all that new wave kind of, especially with the vocals or whatever. So what is the story of that song?
So for the Sea of Trees is a suicide prevention song, basically. It's the original title was for Aokigahara, which is the Japanese suicide forest, and it has the nickname of that forest is the Sea of Trees, and so that's kind of where the title comes from.
Professor Drew, classes in session. I'm learning more. Okay.
But yeah, it's that's where it came from. So that was the second song that I ever wrote. So that's one that I wrote back when I was 21, 22. And it just tells the story of someone who's contemplating it and decides against it. That's basically the whole synopsis, I guess.
Another hot dog song. I mean, really, right, you guys really, you need to step it up and stop with these casual, like just off the cuff kind of, okay, I won't delve too much into that because your explanation was succinct and I will respect that as it is. But so City on the Edge of Forever. This one, I hear The Killers. Do you know that song? When you were young.
Wow.
Yeah, I really.
Ours is Read My Mind. That's the one. That friend Jordan that
Yeah.
she made a mix CD for me right when we first started dating. And oh gosh, I don't know how many times we've heard that song.
So I'm going to guess that CD was 15 songs, 14 of which were Wanted Dead or Alive. And then one kid, yeah, that's classic Jordan, classic Jordan.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then the killer. So that one really, I mean, like I got a lot of new wave in that one. I really dig that one, and I again, like you know, it's got that ethereal. I keep using that word, but I think some of it is the genre, and some of it I think is just, you know, your fingerprints on it, the two of you. But like for all of the music, I mean, whether you're both in it or not. So that one has a story, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, it's so it's kind of a song for artists in a way. So I wrote this one in 2016 or 2017. It was, you know, one of those times where all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm going to start playing music again. I'm going to start recording music, you know, and so I wrote this song. This was the first one I ever wrote that no piano. I was like, oh, I'm going to see if I can write a song with the bass, because that's my primary.
This was the one. Yep.
So I'm like, I'm going to try to write a song with the bass. And so I did. And so I did the whole thing, and I'm like, okay, what do I want this to be about? And so I wanted it to be about someone keep trying to play music and make something of it. And his wife, girlfriend, whatever, was just had enough of it. Was just sick of it, and just left.
Christina just full face turned to look at you, and I know it wasn't anything like, but it was such a funny moment to be like, you know, his wife, girlfriend, whatever, and then she just turned and she's like, what are we about to say? Yeah, you guys never had that problem, fortunately, but I think a lot of people watching this may be able to relate to that. The idea that, you know, the other person on the team is not necessarily thrilled about this particular avocation that their partner has chosen. Yeah.
It's like, you know, so that's where the line, you know, is let's see, how does it start again? It's been a while since I've even, I can't sing that song live because it's out of my vocal range now. I damaged my voice pretty bad about, I don't know, 14 years ago, singing into a practice amp, not a PA.
Oh, no, I did. That's how I blew up my chords too, of trying to get over guitarists. It's awful. Yeah, when you can hear yourself.
An octave of my range.
So you can't do that one anymore. Yeah, because you get up there. So, okay, yeah.
But it was, you know, still blurring the lines between my delusions and dreams. And then the next line between the lines I read, just move on already. Still, I never thought you would leave. And so the whole song is, you know, just like, you know, like she left. You know, I kept trying to play music, or I kept trying to, you know, anybody who wasn't trying to conform to the 9 to 5, you know, like, you know, he's, you know, an artist, like an actual painter or a writer or somebody.
Anybody creative who's, exactly. Who's in that struggle. Yeah. So, no, it's, that, I mean, and again, you know, I just, I think, you know, when we put, and we've got one left, but I mean, when we put all of these together and we look at the landscape of what you are writing about, it's just like, are you exhausted right now? Like going through and being like, wow, when I go back and I'm like, okay, so, you know, we have infertility, and then finally welcoming this little boy that, you know, we wanted for so long. And then, you know, sibling issues, and then we've got missing children, and then we've got, you know, snipers in the US, you know, in Finland, and people being rescued by imaginary people. It's like, it's a lot, you know, and I really, I hope that people are going to get as like sucked into this as I did, because I really, you know, it was like, I kid Professor Drew, you know, but like it really, you know, you've got a lot to say, you know, and what I appreciate too is that, and you said it earlier, you know, you don't want things to be so specific and so literal that you've narrowed someone's experience of it, you know, and it's a conversation that I've had with different people on this show in different ways at different times about, you know, who the song belongs to once it's made. Is it the artist's song? Is it the audience song? Is it both? Does it depend? And really, I think that's up to whoever's listening to it ultimately, because like I said about A Patient Soul, even if that wasn't the story you were telling, that was the story that I heard, and that's what I needed it to be. And so thank you very much, Winter War, for your song. I will be taking it from here. And this is what, what I want it to be. And it ended up being the same thing. But exactly, right? And that's it. And some people are very, very set on, no, this isn't what I meant. And some people are like, that's great. Whatever it means to you, whatever you do with it, that's great. So you're in that latter camp. You're in the good,
yeah.
Okay, take it.
That's one of the things I like most about being a musician is trying to invoke something or grow something in someone, a listener.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal.
You're jumping ahead in questions, but okay. We'll come back to that in a minute. No, I'm just kidding. So, okay, last one then. We have a Corpus Christi. Again, really another one of my favorites. Really beautiful. Very, very pretty. And again, a little more spare than some of the others. But I also feel like this one is maybe a little more alt rocky than some of the other ones, again with the new wave, but so talk to me about and again, big dynamics in this song, which I do love that. I think it's just, it makes the emotions, it creates new emotions, and it deepens the ones that you're already going to have. So with this one, I get the sense there's like a more personal story to this one, or am I wrong?
Well, so this is the first song I ever really wrote and was like, okay, there's a beginning and an end, and there's vocals. That was the first one. And it was basically just I was writing that piano part, and I was playing it a lot, and it started with just like, I wonder if I can write a song using all black keys. That was it. That's all.
Okay.
I wonder if I can do that.
Okay.
And I came close. It was not, there was a B in there, but
for shame, for shame.
But it just and then I wrote the lyrics after feeling really let down by somebody. So that's the whole song was like, you take me there, you make me feel, like forsaken, basically, was the whole. Which, looking back, I mean, is a pretty, desperate type of song. But, and a little juvenile too, maybe. But
no, I mean, I think maybe the you might convey it differently, in the rearview mirror of youth.
Right.
But I think the feeling is pretty universal, at least from what I took from it. That I think we've all been in that feeling of like, why did you show me all that there could be just to take it away from me, kind of thing, and that. So I, again, whether I just love that, you're like, well, and this one, I just like, you set these little obstacle courses for yourself when you're writing music. You're like, now I'm taking my piano away and I have to write something that's only on the bass, and now I have to use only the black keys. And it's like, now I imagine at some point, Christina, Drew's going to be coming to you and saying, I want you to blindfold me and tie one hand behind my back and then put some instrument in front of me that I've never played before, and I want to see if I can do it. And in under 4 minutes, I just feel like you guys have like a amazing race thing going on in the house with how you put music together. But but I really, Drew's like, aha, now I have it. I know how you.
That's why I'm like, how many times have you told me like?
I said, let's get in shape and do the amazing race. Yeah. I'm just always, it's like the joke. I always say that.
There you go. And while you're doing it, you could just be singing Winter War songs. So it's a bunch of free promo. I think that's the way to go. Listen, you have a 3-year-old, you have enough of an amazing race going on. You're kind of already on the show. So, but I mean, I really, that song is really just so lovely, and I think it's softer in its dynamics, but I mean, it's still, it's interesting to me that that's the first one, and I know it's the first one. It's the oldest one that's released, but I didn't realize when it had been written. So, but it's cool because, I usually start at the most recent and work my way back. Every once in a while, depending on the band's story, I'll do it in the reverse. But there was nothing that stood out where it was like, oh, that's one of the old ones, or that's one, you know, it sounds like the sound has been there. It's always been there, you know, and you know, and I both like when I can hear the evolution of a band or a musician in the songs as they go, and when I really can't, because it just tells me, you know, where that musician started, you know, what they had as their vision, who they knew themselves to be musically, and then where they land, you know. And it sounded like, you know, when we began all this, saying that, you know, once you had seen what you were going to do, that was it, and you had it. And I hear that, you know, and I think I'm so glad that Christina, you're going to be doing more, because I think it's just another layer that is only going to richen what you guys have already done. You know, I think that the fact that you know, you're both going to be singing, or sometimes it's just going to be Christina's vocals, you know, and I hope the two of you both sing on things together a lot more, because I really, you know, like, as in Third Man, you know, like I love that. I love that combination. I love all of those textures, as I keep saying. So I guess before we wrap up, what is next for the Winter War? Like, what is the vision? What is the plan? Is it going to go into OG gangster rap? Is that the next thing? Or like, what's the you guys seem clearly primed for that. I know there's probably a gold under there something, but so I mean, like,
what market for that here in Montana too?
100%. I do. You know, you're in the, you know, next to Brooklyn. What better place could you possibly be than Billings for that genre? But right. But where I mean, in the immediate, you know, in terms of new songs, and then just sort of a little longer term, what are you guys thinking is coming next?
Well, we have like another just only instrumental song coming called "The Long Goodbye."
Yes.
That'll release in March.
Right.
And
that's going to be the title of the album, right? That's the
correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. We're getting to that age where, you know, we have friends that are losing loved ones more often, and it's just attrition. You know, friends along the way too. You're like, oh my gosh, that person passed away. You know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, the thought was, you know, when someone passes, it's not, you don't just say goodbye to them. Then it's like a long goodbye. Like, there's things that remind you of them over time, and so that was kind of the, you know, the headspace for that one. And I'm like, you know, I'm just going to leave that one all instrumental. I actually wrote that one, recorded it in a day, and was just like, I'm not going to change it. That's good.
You're done. Yeah.
Yep. And then, so it's funny. It's like, as soon as a song releases, you know, A Patient Soul released yesterday, I'm like, okay, I'm going to record another one. It's almost like a cycle.
I can't rest on my laurels too long.
There's always another one. There's always another one.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest goal right now is going to be, you know, finding other musicians to play these songs with me and try to start, you know, playing them live. That's you know, that's one of the things where I'm like, more often I'm like, all right, Christine, I want you to sing this whole song. So then
because I got a lot of other stuff to do, honey. So like, right. Could you please? Yeah. And I guess that's where Buddy comes in too. So you're gonna have an acoustic drummer now. This is gonna be a big shift.
Oh, I'm loving it. Yeah.
Okay. So you guys have already started, you know, I know he's working up the, okay.
Yep. Okay. Trying to, you know, work on some originals and like, even a cover song to try to, you know, have something that we can just go to start the practice with this. But with that cover song, you know, I'm playing the bass. We would need 2 guitarists and a keyboardist.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, your stuff is not, you know, it's not you and an acoustic, you know, and then you just add the drums. You've really, I mean, would you ever consider playing to tracks that you recorded yourself, just sort of as a?
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are not big on that. Some people are, so.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't let me put it this way. I haven't given any thought to it.
Okay. And you just considered it and have decided no. So there you go. I think that's your answer. You're like, now I thought about it. No. No. And again, I mean, that's one of the things I think in this community that a lot of people come up against is like, okay, now I want to go from being a studio musician to, you know, a live gigging musician, and
Yeah.
How do I do that? Because, I've been playing everything myself. So, I mean, so that's the plan, is to just start accruing human life forms that can do for you what you would ordinarily be doing on your own, and then actually go out and play shows.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Since so that would be a goal. If not, and that's it's hard to find musicians. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah. Well, you never know who's going to be sitting in Montana somewhere nearby watching this and going, I play guitar, pick me. So who knows? We'll hope that the networking gods are favorable to you guys. So, and then Christina, for you, like, where do you see, your piece in this going forward?
I want to grow. I keep telling Drew, I want to find my voice. And I'm like, I have my voice, but I want to find like my style, or, I feel like we're in this zone of creating. And I'm feeling like I'm trying to figure out what is my sound. And maybe
that's a big deal. No, but that's a big deal, because you're right. Because it takes longer than you would think, right? As a singer. Like, I mean, I've been singing for 30 years and I'm still just recently starting to feel like, oh, wait, okay, this is kind of where I think I need to be, which is a weird thing to say. So I understand that, especially like, coming in and you're singing a particular kind of genre, and then what that dictates you do. Would you guys ever dabble in anything else genre wise, just to mix it up, or are you
possibly, there's a lot of, Christina was talking about that, today, and like more synth, like synth pop, which, it's possible. I'm like, yeah, I can write that. I mean, I could, I don't know. We'll see. But one of those things, I don't think we're tied to anything specific. Right, it's just like, if it's good, it's good. Yeah, possibly.
So you're in a real iterative part of things now. You're creating a band, you're adding people, you're expanding, Christina, your role. You guys are maybe considering other things. I think, I guess what's next is discovering what's next. Right. I mean, that sort of seems to be the plan. That's a good plan. That's a good place to be. I mean, at least you're making music, which, that's once you start doing that. And if you're open, you have a lot of options, especially as talented as the two of you are. So, okay. Listen, before I let you go, I cannot let you leave before I do this to you, you poor, poor people. But here we go. I like to end every show with a little segment that we like to call In the Vox Seat. And what this is that I have asked the same 5 questions of every single musician who has been on this show. And as I always tell people, I warn them, usually people hate me for at least one of the questions because it's difficult. And the final question is a community chew toy. People in the community have very strong feelings about it. And as I always warn people, you will win some fans with your answers and lose some fans with your answers. This is the level that we're at of controversy, but don't worry about it too much. We'll get to that. I will begin with this one, which I'm really interested to hear how you both are going to answer it. So for each of you, if you had to describe the Winter War's music in 5 words or less, what would you say?
Do you want to go first?
You go first.
All right.
He's like, I wanted you to go first.
I would say, emotional would be one. Like we've kind of discussed, it's not like surface level stuff.
No hot dog songs. Nope. And by the way, Electric Tardigrade, that is not shade on you. I love hot dog songs, but I'm just saying it's not literally about hot dogs. So there we go. Okay. Emotional. Yes. 100%.
Relatable would be one, because I think, they're kind of like what you were describing. There's certain songs you have different, they hit home for different people in different ways.
Different ways. Absolutely. Yeah.
So thought-provoking would be another one.
I will hyphenate that for you. We're fine. Absolutely. I agree.
Yep. want to get people thinking, especially White Death. That's the one I think about, or like, how it relates to the band name too.
Yeah.
I would say gripping.
No, wait, you have your own list. Hold on.
Okay,
You get
sorry.
your own 5 words, my love. I'm not going to shaft you. I'm going to let him take all of these.
Okay,
You
sorry.
each get, but no, but now you can't say gripping now, Drew. That's her word.
All right.
No problem.
Okay, so we got emotional, we got relatable, we got thought-provoking.
Profound, I would say. There's a lot of, insight, I think, insightfulness and intensity to the music.
Mm-hmm. Last one. Well, do you want to say insightful?
No, I'll say intentional.
Intentional.
Every song that I write, there is intent behind it. Like I'm trying to convey something very specific.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Great list. But I hear the fans are calling you gripping. We're going to go to Christina. All right, Christina, tell me, my love, your list. Are we starting with gripping? Because I like that word a lot for you guys. Okay.
Gripping, also real. Because we're not afraid to sing and talk about, or not talk about, but topics that other people don't really want to talk about.
Absolutely.
Haunting. Some songs are haunting.
Mm-hmm.
And
I would say most. Yeah.
Yeah. And then one thing that I have noticed that some of the songs I'll just start crying. So not emotional, but maybe sad. Some of them are just sad ass songs. They're just sad.
I'm gonna go with sad ass because that's better. Sorry, I'll give you another hyphen. Okay, fantastic. I'm in complete agreement with everything I've heard so far. Last one. Do you have another? Because it is 5 words or less, so you don't have to come up with 5, but I bet you can. You want to say hot dog? I know you do. You want to say hot
Bratwurst, no. Let's see. This is really hard.
And this isn't even the hard one. I think maybe you've said it all. I mean, that there was a lot in there. It is 5 words. We've had people use
5 or less. I'll leave it in.
Yeah, no, Sean Thunderfoot Wells famously used it as.
I want to say it's like me. Sexy, 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 sexy. That's what I'll say.
I think that's my favorite answer so far of his own music. So there are no real rules except it can't go over 5. So I love that. And really putting those 2 lists together draws a really good picture of what you guys are doing. So again, nice teamwork. So this one, I think, Drew, in a way, you already kind of answered it, maybe. But for each of you, what is your favorite thing about being a musician?
Yeah, I'll start. It's what I was saying. Basically, it's just having the ability to invoke a thought or emotion in someone else and have that be something they can take with them and carry. Like I think about some of the songs that I just love that have really they almost frame your artistic sensibilities.
Absolutely.
And to think that I could do that for someone else. It's very humbling, and it really means a lot to me to be able to do that, or even have the opportunity. I was telling you about that focus group that I kind of I've gotten some people will say some things that you're just like, wow, thank you. That's awesome. So.
That makes all of it worth it. Absolutely.
Right.
Okay. A very a frequent answer on the show, and I think for very good reason. That's again part of the magic of music. So, Christina, my dear, what about you? Your favorite thing?
So I have noticed that when I sing, there is a moment where I get it's almost like not being in my body anymore in a way, where I feel connected to loved ones that have passed. I think of my aunt, I think of my grandma, and then I memories come to mind, and it's just kind of like I'm in this space that can't really be touched, but it's like you lose time. And most of all, I just have to bring up my mom, like growing up singing to her,
Yeah.
and just the her look of delight and being so proud. So
Yeah.
anytime that I'm singing, all I can do when I close my eyes is I just see my happy mom, my
Aw.
proud mom. So yeah.
Aw.
Mhm.
Okay. You had a really good answer, Drew. Christina's is really good too. That's a really no, because I think that's, that's so much of it, I mean, and especially I think for musicians, but even for people who aren't, there are so many moments in life that a song can take you right back to it,
Mhm.
and there's something almost Proustian about it, like it's not a scent, but it's a sound that just, it will put you in a place. And I love that you have that haven, to go to in those moments, and I imagine especially when you're singing Linda Ronstadt, that probably happens to you. So that's pretty great. Okay. So as beautiful as that is, though, there is usually a flip side, although there may not be for you guys, but for what is each of you your least favorite thing about being a musician, if you have one?
I would say the difficulty in finding other musicians that share your creative sensibilities, creative process, the ability to just, be able to play with other musicians. Cause that's a part of it for me is, not a lot, like you've stated. I mean, I think we're the first band that would identify as, I guess, a shoegaze or dream pop band that you've had, that you've interviewed. It's very hard to find people that listen to the same type of music as us and that we like. And so that I'd say that's the most difficult thing. That, and I can be very intense, and I think it drives a lot of people away. At least it used to. I don't know. I haven't really tried. Buddy is the first new person that I've tried.
We'll have to get Buddy on in a couple of weeks or months and ask him what he thinks about that. But but you know what? I've talked to musicians who have had that experience where it's like not everybody's on board, and it's not that you're being a jerk. It's just that you have a vision, you know your music, you know what you're going for, and it's like that's people who are going to be part of it have to be on that wavelength, and it's hard enough to find musicians, period. And then when you're talking about not limited to, but within a specific genre or set of genres, and then people that you actually like and who are available and who have the level of talent that you need and who want to do it. And it's like, I always think of that diagram, when people are doing something in their house and it's a triangle and it's like fast, cheap, good, pick two.
Yes.
It's like that with musicians too, talented, interested, and available, and then likable. So it's very hard to do. So I feel you on that one. I know people watching will feel you on that too. So what about you, Christina? Least favorite thing?
So as I had mentioned before, I always performed at different occasions. Well, I'll be at an occasion and people will be like, sing, can you sing?
No.
And I'm like, oh, I didn't prepare, And then
I'm just trying to get my Taco Bell, Janice. Like, could you leave me alone?
Yeah. But then I feel guilty. Like, oh, I should have just done that.
Yeah.
Like just do it. And I think that is kind of like,
okay. You did not bring your little dress with you. You were not ready. I think you should just start doing that now when you go to a party or whatever. Just assume, someone is going to come up and ask me to sing Tomorrow from Annie, which is like my childhood flashbacks of like, being dragged out at 15, like, sing it, Christina. And I'm like, ugh. So I know what you mean. But, it's important to have boundaries too, though. I mean, like you're not a dancing monkey. Like you just want to like hang out at the party and not perform for a little bit. But this, you guys, you that's a good problem to have, though, at least in the sense of people want you to sing.
Right. Yeah.
Some people's least favorite thing might be I go to parties and try to sing and they tell me to stop. So that would be worse. But okay, so this is the one that people usually will hate me for. And I'm very interested to hear what you guys are going to say, because we didn't really talk about it very much. So for each of you, if you had to choose just one album to listen to for the rest of your life, what album would you choose and why?
You want to go first?
Oh, thanks.
It's hard to narrow it.
Maybe Benny wants to go first. You guys can stall.
He's
See
been
what he
asleep.
thinks.
He was asleep earlier.
Cat scratch fever.
Snoring
Oh,
really
Yeah,
loud.
she was trying
I was
not
like,
to laugh.
I was trying not to laugh.
you can laugh. You can totally laugh. I would have asked you to put the mic right up to him at that point.
It was
That's
hilarious.
this show.
He's awake
This
now,
is
I think,
not
but-
Oprah. We are all about snoring cats on this show. This is Benny is not the first cat guest we've had. Herschel, Electric Tardigrade's cat, has made multiple appearances on this show. So maybe Benny was just trying to mix it up a little bit and snore along to the music. But okay, so again, I know it's a tough one, but just try and settle on an album. Who's
Okay.
I think, Christina, you're gonna have to go first because Drew just looks like he's dug his foot in on this one. He wants more time.
So I would have to say Bjork's greatest hits.
Okay, Bjork's. Okay, so tell me why. Very cool.
So Bjork, I love Bjork. My sister and I have seen her 2 times. One was at Coachella,
Okay.
and the other was in San Francisco. And I would drive, commute a lot, an hour to work, an hour back.
Mhm.
And I would literally put on her music, on repeat.
Wow. Okay.
So, and my daughter was 3 years old, 4 at the time. And she would sing all the lyrics too.
Wow, that's great.
And so it's just a real special, I can think back to being with my sister, being with my niece, being with my daughter, and just, this was in my early 20s. And
Okay.
Bjork was always playing.
That's very
so to
cool.
me, and if I'm taking a drive and I just want to go to that place,
Mm,
I can put those songs on and I'm just there.
I love it. I love that your favorite thing, and that are almost the same answer. That
Yeah.
you're very emotionally attuned to music. So that's
Mhm.
that's a powerful tool for you. That's cool too that it's generational. That you
Yeah.
can think of being younger and listening to it and then thinking of it, as a mom and listen. Very cool. Very cool. And Bjork is, I know for a while people mostly made fun of her because she's quirky,
Right.
but I, like a Tori Amos or somebody who's got
Mhm.
an unusual timbre like that, who's, even like Gaga at the beginning with the meat dress and all of that,
Yeah.
when you look past all of that and you're not confounded by, the pageantry of it, those voices are something. They're really, nobody sounds like Bjork at all. She's very hard to sing.
Mhm.
Very hard to sing. Okay. That's a very cool. No one has ever said Bjork before. So good for
Oh.
you. All right, Drew, you've had your time. Christina was
Yeah.
gracious and gave you a buffer, but this is it now. What is your desert island disc?
Well, it's funny. We when we first started sharing music with each other, Bjork's from Iceland. One of my favorite bands is Sigur Rós. And that
Okay.
was things that we really hit it off. But and it would almost so close to being them. But I think for me it would be the Appleseed cast,
Okay.
Marv Vitalis.
Okay.
So the Appleseed cast is just
That's
been-
your Midwest emo type. Yeah.
It was been my favorite band since, probably, I don't know, the early 2000s.
Okay.
So
did
that-
you
that
pick an album? There's just one?
Marv Vitalis is the name of the album. It's one of those I can put on and I love every single song. So
Okay. There you go. See, you took the time and you used it wisely. I appreciate that. All right, listen, this is it. This is the last question. And I warned you, it is a political hot button issue. Okay. So I have to always do this now because, people are watching in the chat when these premiere and emotions are running high at this point in the show because Joe from Freaky Things is saying, no, please, no, the Winter War. I like you guys. Don't screw this up.
Oh.
We've got a whole thing here. I will not keep you in suspense because I don't want Christina to get worried about what I'm going to ask. But again, we began with deeply serious. We're going to end with deeply serious. Here we go. Your toilet paper roll. When you put the toilet paper on the holder, does the toilet paper come from over the top or do you pull it out from under the bottom and why? And I'm going to assume this is going to be a same answer since you guys are a couple, but not always. So who's taking it? What is your toilet paper orientation?
It's over. I mean, I don't understand why it's a question, to be honest. Because it's like, I mean, under is just silly, right? I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. I don't know.
Okay, so you are a hardcore over. Christina,
I mean,
is this
yeah.
is this a mixed marriage or?
So it's kind of funny because prior to meeting Drew, I never cared, just as long as there was toilet paper.
Okay.
Now it is over.
Okay, but now, all right. So Joe Freaky Things is saying that's it, count it. But I must, as an investigative journalist, I must ask the probing question. Is it over now because that's the way that Drew likes it? Or have you come to embody the over culture? Or given your druthers, would you still not care?
I think I'm now part of the over culture because when I'm at a public place and it's under, I'm like, what?
Okay. Yeah, no, you've all right, Joe, don't worry. I'm giving it 2 overs. I just had to ask the question because some people will say, "Oh, I'm an over because that's the way my wife, my husband, my partner, whatever does it." And I'll say, "Right, but what would you do?" And then they'll be like, "I don't really care." And then they become an other. We have 4 categories. We have over, which is by far and away the winner by leaps and bounds. Then we've got under, which is the least popular category, but they are a strong under army. We've got other, which is all the people who really either don't care or they don't put it on the holder, or they, we got Joel from Grimrock wants to put it on a paper towel holder and have it sideways. We've got all manner of things. And then we've got Dean. Dean from the other broken ones will, if it is over, he will turn it to under. If it is under, he will turn it to over. He is an agent of chaos. He has no.
He's an anarchist.
He really is, though. He absolutely is. So our categories are over, under, other, and Dean. So you guys have just added 2 to the sizable over community. And you have won many fans in the process, which I don't think you needed toilet paper to do, but every little bit helps. So listen, Drew, Christina, I know this is probably one of the stranger interviews you've ever done, but I've so enjoyed talking to you guys today and really getting to dig in on the music because I know people in the community know of you, but I think, hopefully this will encourage everyone to explore the music more. So as I do, guys, I'm going to ask you, please like them, follow them, subscribe to them. More important than any of that, listen to the music. Reach out if you guys are into shoegaze at all, especially, and you know anybody in Montana, hook a couple up here, like let them know they are ready to go out and play, but they need actual physical bodies for Meet Space to do that. So but really, thank you guys. Thank you for sharing your time and your music and your story. And I'm so glad that you have each other and that you have your baby boy and your daughter and that we have you guys in the community. So thank you again for coming on.
All right. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. All right, guys, that's it. That's another Vox and Guest in the books. We'll see you next time. Bye.